The man accidentally stumbled into a primitive tribe during his car accident. He was amazed to find that the people here hunted without any weapons. They simply chased their prey until it was exhausted and died. As an athletics coach, he didn't believe this at all. He claimed that cheetahs were the fastest animals on Earth. The idea that you could run and tire one to death seemed absurd to him. But just as he finished speaking, he recalled what he had witnessed earlier. They had indeed chased and exhausted a cheetah to death right in front of him. The man briefly thought his car accident had caused him to lose his mind, until one of the tribe members took him to a training ground. He saw the people there practicing every day by chasing leopards. They didn't stop until the leopards were exhausted and dead. The man watched, utterly disbelieving. He asked the chief if this was the fastest runner in the tribe. The chief shook his head and said he was just ordinary. The real warriors could run for 10 days and nights without stopping to catch their breath. Upon hearing this, the man saw an opportunity. He thought that if he brought just one of these people to a marathon, winning first place would be a breeze. He quickly expressed his interest to the chief. However, the others showed reluctant expressions. Then someone suggested that the slowest person in the tribe should go. The chief's eyes lit up as though he had found a lifeline. He quickly told the man to take that person, because he was the tribe's disgrace, only able to run for 3 days and nights at most. Before the man could reply, they shouted into the air. In an instant, a figure as fast as lightning appeared in front of the man. The speed of the runner shocked the man, but the other tribe members found him embarrassing. They told the man that the slowest one in the tribe was about to starve. He couldn't even catch a regular leopard. Still in shock, the man was mistaken by the tribe for not wanting to take the slowest person. The chief hurriedly pushed a precious gem into his hand, almost pleading for him to take the man. So the man took the wild man to the city. But along the way, the wild man couldn't sit still in the car, complaining that it was too slow. Then the wild man suddenly jumped out of the car and started racing it. He even ran faster than the car. However, when they arrived at the training gym, there was a small incident. A team member told him that the chairman had hired a new team that insisted on racing them. They ended up losing badly with no one winning. At that moment, the coach of the other team approached. The man recognized him as the scheming guy who had caused him to miss a race years ago. Back then, out of jealousy, the scheming man had hired someone to break his leg so he couldn't compete. Now, the scheming man arrogantly declared that he would be the city's best coach. Unless their team could beat his, they should leave with their useless people. The man's temper flared and he immediately called the wild man to show them what he could do. The scheming man sneered when he saw the wild man, a huge, awkward-looking figure. He sent out his slowest runner to race against the wild man. Just before the race began, the assistant reminded the man that the wild man wasn't wearing shoes. They quickly found a pair of professional running shoes for him. The wild man, wearing shoes for the first time, awkwardly stomped his feet. The man whispered, urging him to run at the speed he used to catch rabbits, and he would definitely win. But as soon as the race began, the wild man panicked and collapsed to the ground. The other team burst into laughter. What made it worse was that the wild man ran slower than a normal person would walk. The man couldn't understand what was happening. He had seen the wild man's abilities with his own eyes. Soon, the other team finished the race, leading by 1 lap, and the wild man was far behind. The man still couldn't figure out why the wild man wasn't performing well. Unable to communicate with him, he was at a loss for answers. That evening, while eating, the wild man took off his shoes, clearly uncomfortable. As he was enjoying the barbecue, he suddenly heard a cry of thief. A thief had snatched the half-eaten skewer from his hands. Before he could react, a man at the next table dashed out after the thief. Seeing the skewer was being stolen, the wild man immediately gave chase. What followed stunned everyone. In an instant, the wild man flew out like lightning. The man stood up in excitement, realizing he hadn't made a wrong choice. The wild man was definitely an athletic genius. Meanwhile, 2 thieves on electric bikes were in disbelief. They couldn't understand how the 2 men could run faster than the bikes. The first to catch up was the athletics champion. No one in the country had ever broken his speed record. But then, with a swift movement, the wild man overtook him. The champion was stunned, glancing at his stopwatch, which showed a speed of 80 kilometers per hour. This young man could keep up, not giving up. The champion thought the wild man was also an athlete, but the wild man ignored him, speeding past with a burst of energy. He even overtook the thief and snatched his skewer back. The next day arrived. It was the day the national team was selecting potential new recruits. The bald-headed boss of the man knew the opportunity had come. If the athletics champion picked someone from his team, they would become famous. The athletics champion looked disappointed at the group of the scheming man's players. He had thought the wild man from the night before was from the provincial team, but it seemed he had been wrong. Just then, the man entered with his team. The bald-headed boss immediately changed his expression and told him to leave. But before he could finish speaking, the athletics champion walked over. His gaze locked on the wild man in the crowd. The scheming man quickly told him that these were all minor players. Even their substitute runners could easily beat them. The man quickly explained that the wild man hadn't performed well the previous day. He begged the chairman to give them another chance. Seeing that the athletics champion allowed it, the bald-headed boss reluctantly agreed. This time, the 2 teams would race 3 kilometers. At the sound of the whistle, the wild man's start was noticeably faster than before. The scheming man saw this and commented that if he kept up the pace, he'd burn out soon. But the man didn't agree. If it were anyone else, that might be true. But the wild man could run for 3 hours straight. On the track, the scheming man's runner quickly overtook the wild man. But for some reason, the wild man began to slow down. The athletics champion also couldn't understand what was happening. As time ticked away, the scheming man's runner entered the final lap. The wild man was left far behind. At that moment, the man suddenly realized something was wrong. The wild man's feet kept stumbling over each other. He remembered that the wild man always ran barefoot. Then he understood the problem. He quickly shouted at the wild man to take off his shoes. By now, the opponent had only a few hundred meters to go, while the wild man still had several laps to go. Hearing that he could remove his shoes, the wild man immediately tossed aside the troublesome shoes. As soon as his bare feet hit the ground, he exploded forward like a wild horse. In his eyes, the figures of those ahead turned into frightened little animals. His primal hunting instincts awakened. In an instant, the wild man overtook them all. The onlookers were stunned. With little time left, the wild man didn't even bother adjusting his stride. He leapt into the air, stepping on his opponent's head as he flew past. Everyone was left speechless, completely stunned by the turn of events.